Welcome to the new Cyber Frontier, bringing you the latest news on the local Colorado economy and initiatives that focus on the development of cybersecurity economics. You don't have to be a computer or cybersecurity expert to get plugged in. Your host, Chris Gorog, brings it straightforward, asks the tough questions, and brings the cyber world to a level of understanding for everyone. Chris is personable and opens up with our guests on the issues we all would like to see addressed. You can find us on the web at www.newcyberfrontier.com. Now join our host as he introduces the topic for today's New Cyber Frontier.
So welcome back to New Cyber Frontier. We have a guest today, Mark Luciw. He has been in the industry for 30 years. He says the last 10 years in cybersecurity, 3 years of operational cyber. He's going to talk to us about what that is in his definition. Works for a company called ARC Advisory Group out of Boston, which has been around for 30 years, and we're going to talk about things they do in industrial automation and energy, and some new research. Very interesting is some major initiatives that are going on, sponsored by big organizations, and I imagine some government sponsors that are looking at cyber and critical infrastructure across the industry. But Mark, welcome today. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to share this time with you today and present some of the direction and strategies that we're working on.
Yeah.
Very excited about it.
And we appreciate you being on as well. So I had met Mark through some conversations. We met on LinkedIn and sponsoring an event which we're going to talk about. Actually, tell us just what the event is that you do, and we'll talk more details about it at the end, though.
Well, as you know, Chris, I'm with ARC Advisory Group, and ARC has been in the industry now for about over 30 years, and they are a advisory group that has developed market studies in the industrial automation and manufacturing industry, and we cover about 19 different vertical markets, from energy, oil and gas, utilities, wastewater, and water systems, all the way down to pulp and paper, chemical, the whole 9 yards, consumer packaged goods, food and beverage, pharmaceutical, healthcare, medical devices, automotive, building and automation. Mm-hmm. So there's a very complex group of processes and products that are involved in this industry. And so automation is a very key area of interest, and as technologies become more and more advanced, this industrial sector is becoming more and more advanced as well. Traditionally, a lot of these systems, they're legacy systems in power plants that are 30 years old. Mm-hmm. And these vendors have been dominated by companies like GE, Siemens, Rockwell, and those are the industrial control systems that are embedded in a lot of these processes in these markets, and that's what ARC covers. And our forum is being held on the February 6th through the 9th in Orlando, and this is a great opportunity for issues like dealing with cybersecurity, industrial cybersecurity, which is a big challenge, in especially utilities and oil and gas and chemical companies, not to mention pharmaceuticals and food and beverage. Mm-hmm. And so that's a key topic of interest. And at this forum, we have Marty Edwards, who is the keynote presenter from DHS, and he specifically focuses on industrial control systems and critical infrastructure at DHS.
We'll be right back with the rest of today's show right after these brief messages from our sponsors. Cyber Resilience Institute helps build strong cyber communities designed to prevent members from attack. Like building a neighborhood watch, it takes coordination and a sharing community to protect our identities and valuables in the virtual world. Typically, we hear that organizations know they need to do something to protect their cyber assets, but don't know where to begin. Let Cyber Resilience Institute help your community create an action plan. Cyber Resilience Institute will build your community or business marketplace so that it is designed to support a collective cyber defense. Contact them for more information at cyberresilienceinstitute.org.
At this forum, we have Marty Edwards, who is the keynote presenter from DHS, and he specifically focuses on industrial control systems and critical infrastructure at DHS. And so we're going to be talking about some very interesting problems that occur in the industrial control market and some of the challenges that IIoT represent, some strategies in terms of managing security and technology and also compliance, the ability to do anomaly and breach detection, which is very important because, as you know, the Ukrainian power plant situation, which was breached last year, and some people are saying that there's some other breaches that may have occurred. We are going to be discussing some of the capabilities today with a number of new version suppliers that have developed some technologies and capabilities to help this industry. And so we're going to present those types of sessions at our workshops and end-user presentations at our exhibition.
Interesting. So that's a very interesting. So you also said you were involved with a lot of research. Can you give me some details and understanding of what you're doing in this area for research?
Okay, so we research several key domains. Our website is www.arcweb.com, and so there's a lot of detail in our website that shows some of the research and market research that we do, but we produce studies based on some of the technology suppliers that have different products and services that they offer, especially in cybersecurity and in IIoT. So we follow companies like, for example, GE, IBM, Siemens, and Rockwell and Emerson, and these are industrial control companies are typically developing new technologies, new partnerships to provide innovation and new innovative products, and specifically in IIoT and cybersecurity sector. And along with that, there's a tier of other suppliers, we call the emerging vendors, that are new companies that are startups that have been venture capitally, funded, VC funded, and are evolving and growing. And so some of them have unique capabilities that they added value in various different areas of industrial cybersecurity. And what we have done is we defined several key points about what is industrial cybersecurity. So we broke it down into endpoint protection, anomaly and breach detection, also operational management and security for compliance, because compliance tends to be a big issue with NERC-CIP as being a key compliant point for utilities. And then also corporate governance for a lot of the oil and gas companies are a big concern. So how do they initiate policies and manage those policies against what they're providing visibility into terms of their internal assets. So that's a key challenge for a lot of these big oil and gas companies, because they're global companies, and they typically have plants globally, and it's very difficult to access those plants on a regular basis. So their security is a big concern for them, as well as how do they lock that down and protect themselves. And so they're looking for tools and services to help them.
So can you give me some details about some of the startups and new things coming around? Maybe some things that you see, some hot companies coming down the road, hot technologies that you would recommend people check into?
Yeah, there's a big development. So development of companies from Israel, from the United States, especially from the government sector, and some of those companies are going to be at our forum presenting their capabilities. But there's one company out of the Netherlands called Security Matters, who has developed anomaly and breach detection, and they've been very strong in working with some of the utilities.
Okay.
Another company called Clarity, which is from Israel, they're doing the same thing. They're working with some of the food and beverage and oil and gas companies. Even Cisco is actually developing, has a security strategy for managing industrial control systems, and they're working in that sector as well. Cisco, of course, is very well known in their IT world, but in the operations sector, they have a team that has developed some work with Shell, Shell Oil, and a company called Yokogawa. And so there's a lot of new technologies that are emerging. Another company called Nozomi, which is a startup. They just started here in the U.S. about a few months ago. They've got some interesting anomaly detection capabilities. So because of all the incidents that have occurred and require a lot more visibility into the network and understanding of what the network anomalies may cause a disruption, they need some better visibility and better tools to be able to analyze that. And without being, the unique part about it is that they cannot be intrusive. So the challenge there is that these types of tools have to be passive, yet provide them with the value of being visible, providing visibility of any problem. So that's why this market is very difficult and also evolving, because there's lots of challenges in it. And so you have we have companies like Indigi, which is also an Israeli company that has moved into the U.S., and they've got tremendous investment backing. CyberX, another one. There's a number of companies, and they're going to. If you look on the website, they're all posted there. We have about 16 overall companies in the industrial cybersecurity sector that are going to be at our forum. And so they're developing unique relationships with the ICS vendors and partnerships, and to help overall the end users try to mature this marketplace. Right now it's evolving. It's not really totally mature yet, and that's the challenge. So it's a people resource, it's a tools resource, it's a resource challenge overall to try to protect these complex systems, which tend to be very distributed. Even in a utility, you have substations, and they may be regional, but they're large, complex substations, and they need to be managed. And that's a very difficult challenge.
We'll be right back with the rest of today's show right after these brief messages from our sponsors. Cyber Resilience Institute helps build strong cyber communities designed to prevent members from attack. Like building a neighborhood watch, it takes coordination and a sharing community to protect our identities and valuables in the virtual world. Typically, we hear that organizations know they need to do something to protect their cyber assets, but don't know where to begin. Let Cyber Resilience Institute help your community create an action plan. Cyber Resilience Institute will build your community or business marketplace so that it is designed to support a collective cyber defense. Contact them for more information at cyberresilienceinstitute.org.
Question I would ask, just your opinion here of the marketplace. You know, I've been in this operational area and critical infrastructure for a long time myself, and you said it's an evolving industry. You know, I saw it as an evolving industry almost a decade ago, and all kinds of interest comes up at certain times, and then it kind of went off the chart. Why is it not? Why is it still evolving? Why isn't it picked up? You know, back in the late 2000s, the smart grid was a big boom. A lot of money went into the SGIP and everything, and a lot of people were involved. But then it kind of just went off the chart. Why now is it still evolving and it hasn't got to implementation?
I think that's a really good question, because one thing that I see is yesterday I was at a major utility down in Southern California, and they were telling me that the challenge there is that there's more microgrids being developed. There's more generation that they need to be able to obtain because of regulation issues. So that means that there's dynamics occurring into their systems that traditionally have been very static. Mm-hmm. So the traditional utility model is becoming more dynamic than it was before. So even, for example, we're weaning off of coal, which was a fairly simple generation type of plant, but now a lot of these coal plants are being shut down, and some of these nuclear plants are being shut down. So to offset that, they need to be able to develop a gas, they actually call liquid natural gas now a green energy because it has a smaller carbon footprint. But in order to deliver natural gas, you need to build a pipeline. So in order to fire these generation plants, a pipeline now has to be built in order to continuously flow and fuel the generation plant. Mm-hmm. And in addition to that, they need to tie in solar and wind into the grid and whatever other renewables that they want to be able to utilize, and that creates new vulnerabilities. Mm-hmm. So the complex issue is that there's new vulnerabilities that are being introduced, which typically were not in these systems before. And as new technologies come in, which are now internet-based, IP-based, and before it was just maybe two wires, mm-hmm. Communicating in one direction. So you would send a field person to fix something, but now you can communicate back and forth without sending a field person out. And so these grids are becoming smarter, providing more data, and as a result, they actually become more vulnerable. So and this is the same that's happening in the oil and gas industry. Companies want to collect data. They want to become smarter about how they deploy, where they deploy, the level of business intelligence that they want to be able to obtain about their operations. Mm-hmm. And as a result, that level of complexity in terms of the communication path creates new vulnerabilities. And as a result, you're as good as your weakest link. Mm-hmm. So these attacks that are becoming out of other areas in the world are now attacking new vulnerabilities that and new weak links that typically were not perceived of as before. and that's the challenge. That's why it's becoming more complex.
Okay. So
I hope that helps. I hope that helps.
yeah, good explanation. I always love it when somebody that's knee deep or neck deep in the industry has some good explanations. That was great. So I heard there's also some big initiatives headed up by Exxon, I believe, that you can tell us about that you guys are involved with. Give us an understanding of what's going on there.
Okay. So ExxonMobil and Lockheed last year, the problem is this. The communication between industrial control systems is very siloed, meaning, I'll give you a good example. It would be as if you were to communicate via a cell phone and I was an AT&T subscriber, I could only talk to people that are using AT&T phones. I couldn't call anyone that's on Verizon or Sprint or T-Mobile. I can only communicate from that fashion.
Mm-hmm.
So the situation has occurred in the last 30 to 40 years has been that these vendors, suppliers, the major industrial control suppliers, had a communication mechanism where it was not flexible to be able to communicate with these other control systems.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's data, there's information, and there is other value add capabilities to be able to set up a communication mechanism where all this is agnostic. They don't want to be tied to a Siemens control mechanism. They want to be able to communicate, across
Mm-hmm.
these platforms. So ExxonMobil, being one of the largest companies in the world, has contracted with Lockheed Martin to help them review this problem. And ARC is one of the research firms that is helping both ExxonMobil and the industrial automation side and Lockheed review this problem and determine how to create what we call the open automation platform of the future. And so a lot of the industrial control vendors are involved with this. Companies like Shell and Saudi Aramco and some of the other big oil companies are also becoming involved with this.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly, some of the major energy companies, energy utilities, also have expressed interest, and because this is a very real problem for them as well. And also pharmaceuticals. We have Merck and Pfizer that have expressed serious interest in this open automation platform. And so we will be discussing this issue and also reviewing plans of going forward, how to create this initiative and this initiative materializes in the year 2020. So this session will be held at our forum, and everyone is invited to participate who may be interested. So
Interesting.
this will be in Orlando back. Yeah.
So Mark,
it's very strategic. I wanted to mention one thing. I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
But it's a very strategic initiative, and this is really an executive and manufacturing type issues that these companies are facing in terms of costs and managing their overall costs for the future.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's okay. So what you explained there, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on this, because back with the SGIP, there was similar talk. Electric Power Research Institute, work with them on similar talk as well. Itron, big company, said we're going to get the industry together, bring in all people that can talk about this. These efforts fizzled out in the past, or maybe they're still ongoing, but the attendance and the participation went to nil. What makes this different, that it's going to succeed, that you see coming down right now with this effort?
It's really about the commitment of these companies. They have to do something, and that's the challenge. How this is going to morph, I really don't know. But there has to be these legacy systems are, and what I call DCSs, which are distributed control systems, are becoming obsolete, and there have to be upgraded in a lot of these organizations. And the challenge there is the cost and how they upgrade. So this is a pain point for a lot of these major corporations as they move forward and migrate to new technologies and incorporate IIoT. Because in order for them to be successful with IIoT implementations, and the whole notion of that, they're going to require communication mechanisms that allow them to do that, and also security mechanisms that are built in. So the challenge with IoT right now is that these security mechanisms are really not built in or embedded into these systems. And so that's, your point is well taken. A lot of these initiatives have failed and fizzled, but this one really, I think, has some traction because of the fact that there are some strategic pain points that, not only just Exxon, but a lot of the other big players are pushing this as a major agenda.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'd love to have organizers and people founding this effort on the show. So please make some introductions for me, because I'd love to talk about this. I'm very passionate in the cybersecurity, but especially in critical infrastructure and industrial control. So right down my area that I love to talk about and bring front and center. Kind of in closing, though, anything you'd like to get out to the public, our listeners, about your event, things you have going on, things with the company, go ahead and do so.
Yeah, I would like to encourage them to join us at the forum. I'm personally, if they want to reach out to me, if they want to get a personal invite to the forum, I'd be more than happy to do that. And it's designed primarily to help network and inform people about what's happening with technology today in all these different research areas. So, if you're going to if you could post my email and all my information, and come through my email and my phone information to the team, I'd be more than happy to have them sign up for the forum and join us in Orlando on the 6th through the 9th.
All right, we'll do that. We'll put your email address, webpage. I try to stay away from phone numbers because people get flooded. But we'll do email address email address, webpage, things like that. Go ahead and send those to me. I'll make sure they get up. But thanks a lot for joining today, Mark, and I appreciate your input to our show.
Thank you very much, Chris, and I appreciate the opportunity, and hope to reach out to you with a couple more of these calls later on. Thank you.
All right. Sounds great. Have a good day.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of New Cyber Frontier. Remember to get involved. Often we think that someone else will handle privacy and security in the virtual world, but you are the only one truly in command of your virtual fate. Join our mailing list so we can keep you informed of breaking news and new releases. If you have an idea, if you have a question that you would like to hear answered, or if you want to get involved with our efforts, reach out to us at newcyberfrontier.com. We also encourage you to visit our sponsors' links, as they are the ones that really make this show possible. I want to thank each of you for supporting the show, and we look forward to seeing you back for the next episode of New Cyber Frontier.